Welcome to week 6 of your self-esteem remodel. So, we're moving on to the next structural element of creating a healthy self-esteem, and that is looking at the alignment between your choices and your values. So, a few years ago, I had the opportunity to go down to Texas and participate in one of Brene Brown's training programs. So I became a Daring Way facilitator. So, a really cool experience. I love a lot about the work that she does. Part of the homework we got in going through the program was to dig into our values, to increase our awareness. In fact, we were asked to distill down our values to our top two values. And this was a pretty significant process. I'm not going to ask you to do that. Um, I am going to ask you to identify your values. And if you'd like to pare it down to your top two, you're certainly welcome to do that. It was a really helpful exercise for me, really brought a lot of clarity for me around what my values were. And the two values that I identified as my top two values were connection and growth. We're going to talk more about why it's significant to know what it is that you value. So, first, what are your values? Your values, it's your principles or standards of behavior. It's your judgment about what's important in life. So, this is the definition of your personal values. So, standards, principles of your behavior, and what you determine to be important. So, where do your values come from? You can probably guess. It definitely comes from or is influenced by the family that you grew up in. So, for some families, play might be a huge value. For other families, hard work is a huge value. For other families, it might be about academics, learning, reading. So you can see that based on the family that you grew up in, it will definitely impact and influence your values. The culture and the society that you grow up in. If you grew up in the United States, even compared to Canada, there would potentially be different values. Grew up in the United States versus in Europe certainly could be different values. So, where you grow up, your culture, the society has an influence on your values. And certainly for us, our religion has a huge impact on our values. So, that's what our values are, and that's where they come from. So, why knowing your values matters? Your values act as your compass. So if I come back to my two main values, growth and connection, if I'm facing a life decision, if I'm struggling to know which direction to go, checking in with my values is a great way for me to identify and get clarity about, is this a path that matches my value of connection or is in alignment with my value of growth? So our compass, there's all kinds of stories, right, about if we're navigating in the ocean or if we're navigating when we're flying. It doesn't take being off of course even a little bit. As we get further and further down that line, we're further and further off course. So knowing what our values are can help direct us, can help us to have clarity in making decisions in life. All right. So I'm going to ask you to go through the exercise of identifying your values. I want to be very clear here. There is no right or wrong answer. You may look at that values list that I'm going to share with you and think, what are the good values or the right values for you to have or for a Christian to have or for an LDS woman to have? I want you to be really careful about that. There are no right or wrong answers. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself about what you value. If you're not honest with yourself, you're going to struggle to be in alignment, which is what we're going to talk about next. So please be honest with yourself about those things that you value. This is not about what other people value. This is not about what you believe you should value. So just because you grew up in a family that valued play or work or academics, it doesn't mean that's the value you're supposed to have. You may not value those things, and that's okay. That's okay. So please step into this connected within and being honest with yourself as you walk through this exercise. All right. So step one. In your worksheets, you're going to see a list, and it's a big list. I don't want it to be overwhelming. So the first step, I just want you to read through that list, and anything that rings true to you, anything that holds significance, just circle it. Don't spend a ton of time analyzing all of the different things. For this first step, just read through and circle anything that speaks to you. In the second step, you're going to start to categorize, you're going to start to group together those values that you've circled based on what they have in common. On this values list, you can see there are some common themes, and you might draw from those, or you might come up with your own. And that's a good point. There are spaces at the end of this values list. So if you value something that you don't see listed, add it. This is by no means an exhaustive values list. So start to group together in smaller and smaller groups the values that are connected, that are associated. Okay. You're going to repeat this process. You're going to keep sort of grouping them together, whittling it down until you come up with your top 5 values. And I really want you to focus on getting to 5. If you want to do 2, that's totally fine. But I want you to focus on getting to at least 5. You don't need to prioritize them 1 through 5. You're just saying, these are my top 5 values. So this is the exercise, this is the process for getting clarity around your values. And we'll talk about what that means with alignment in the next section.